So welcome everybody that
Yeah.
is watching to the 13th session of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah, so we're starting, this is our first reading looking at the introductory material in our book, This Bridge Called My Back, Writings of Radical Women of Color. I'm holding up the 4th edition, and it's edited by Cherríe Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. My name's Leonie Smith, and I'm the moderator for tonight. And I'm here with Michelle, and we hope to be joined by others. But if you want to introduce yourself, Michelle, then please do.
Hi there. I am Logo Michelle Odom. I am so happy to be here. I've got my entrance fee. Man, thank you, Leonie. And I am calling in from Brooklyn, New York, the epicenter of the epicenter.
Very good. Yeah. I forgot to mention that I'm actually calling from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So I'll start off by sharing a little bit about the book, and then a little bit about what we are doing here tonight, like about the questions. We'll start our discussion on the questions of the book.
And Leonie, let me just mention that this is session 13 of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle, meaning this is our 13th book that we're reading publicly as a collective, having started back in June of 2014. And you can find the archives of all of our discussions on our YouTube page for the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. And we also have a Facebook page where we send out invitations and things like that.
Yes. Thank you for that reminder, Michelle. So there's a little bit of a preamble before we get to the questions. Would you be willing to read that preamble, Michelle, before we look at the first question?
Yeah, let me find it. Get my screens together here. Oh, that's too big. Too big. Okay. This Bridge Called My Back, Writings by Radical Women of Color, is a feminist anthology edited by Cherríe Moraga and Gloria Anzaldúa. I don't know if I'm saying their names right. First published in 1981 by Persephone Press. In 2015, the 4th edition was published by the State University of New York Press in Albany. The book centers on the experiences of women of color and emphasizes intersectionality within their multiple identities, challenging white feminists who made claims to solidarity based on sisterhood. Writings in the anthology, along with works by other prominent feminists of color, call for a greater prominence within feminism for race-related subjectivities, and ultimately laid the foundation for third wave feminism. It has become one of the most cited books in feminist theorizing. And that is a truncated piece of the summary found in Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michelle. So I think I'll go ahead and I'll just read the first question.
Okay.
The first question comes, there's a quote. The quote reads, "To view the world today through a feminist of color lens shatters all barriers of state-imposed nationality. So the question is, this is an invitation in the form of a declaration. When you think of it, does it land as true? What is your relationship to feminists of color outside of your own experience? And do these stories and experiences make your relationship to feminism and activism expansive, or is it contracting? In other words, are you strengthened by those connections to the experiences of women of color?
Is Nicole coming in?
It looks like Nicole's
Yes, I'm
coming.
so sorry, you all. My meeting ran over. So sorry, but I am here.
Glad to have you here.
Glad to see you all. I just need 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna get on camera here with
Okay.
you all. Okay, I'm gonna just
All
grab
right.
water. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Did you want to share anything about any of the questions that are there, Michelle?
Well, let me look at question 1.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship to feminists of color outside of my own experience. I don't know that I have a lot of those in my later life.
Mm-hmm.
I used to have quite a few connections to other women other than Black women in my younger days. And I did always find it, I guess I would choose expansive as the word there, or just fascinating to learn about their experiences, the similarities and the differences. And it's those kinds of experiences that help to teach me. We really can't make assumptions about people just based on one aspect of their identity, like gender. So, just because you're a woman, it doesn't mean we're all having the same experiences or drawing the same conclusions or necessarily on the same page. So, I'd say I found it expansive.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that matches my experience as well. I think largely because most of my involvement in feminist spaces has come from the fact that I've worked in like helping nonprofits that have been focused on supporting women. And because I live in Vancouver now, but I'm from Toronto, which is a very like cosmopolitan international city, I had a lot of exposure from childhood through to the stories of women from around the world. And so, while it has been expansive, it's helped me. I've had a very clear understanding from a young age of there being definitely a unifying experience that comes from being a person of color and being a woman of color. I think in the book here, they talk about how even if you're like born and raised, say like in the Western world or North America, or because the book is American, it's talking about in the United States that like women of color have like this experience of like understanding innately the struggles of what I think there's some kind of term like third world understanding of the world. So, and I think now if we were using more kind of common or modern language, it's like there's a sense of being part of the global majority, even though we're North American based. So that's been really helpful. Good to see you, Nicole. That's been really fruitful in terms of my understanding of feminism and the impacting role of women has almost always come from an international lens because of my exposure since childhood.
Yeah, and I think exposure there is really a key word. Like I'm thinking about Cherríe in the book. There's a, I think it may be when she first met Barbara Smith or some Black woman, and they said to her, you know, something like, "I used to think you were so white," and Cherríe said, "Yeah, I used to think I was so white also."
Yeah.
And you know, and so her interactions with other women of color is, you know, what helped to put her in touch with her own Latina heritage. Yeah.
We're looking at question 1, Nicole. I'm wondering if you have anything to share.
Who are you, Nicole?
Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself first? Oh, you're muted still. You're still muted. There we go.
Can you all hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Wilson, and I am joining from Houston, Texas. So glad to be back and to see everyone and loving this book. As you all can see, I'm just writing. So,
me too.
This has been a beautiful experience. Yes, love it, love it. So I'm pulling my questions up on my cell phone.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I'm gonna jump in.
We're being joined by Kim as well, but there's no sound yet. So why don't we just give a minute for you to pull up your questions, and then also look at some point having Kim join us.
Okay. I was wondering who Kay was. That
would be my guess.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but you know, it's also interesting, Leonie, in the way that integration has functioned and immigration has functioned in the United States, that you know, often leaves us feeling more aware of our differences from our ethnic backgrounds than feeling the kind of solidarity that I think, particularly in this late 70s, early 80s period, progressive people were trying to forge. You know, but that strategy of divide and conquer, I mean, you know, they're never going to stop using it because it's good shit. It works.
Yeah, one of the things that I really appreciated in the reading of the pages that were for tonight was how the thread of kind of like Black Asian tensions, kind of one of the sources that it comes from was that in the United States, that there were funds that were available. I think they made reference to like the Martin Luther King Fund and stuff that were about trying to establish Black businesses within Black neighborhoods that came specifically out of the struggle, the civil rights struggle, and that those funds were withdrawn from the Black community and given directly to Asian communities.
Right.
Which is where the phenomenon of Asian businesses being in Black neighborhoods has come from, and then has led to some of the tensions, including, like, I remember reading about stuff happening between Koreans and Black people, like in Bedford-Stuy,
Mm-hmm.
other parts of Brooklyn and other parts of New York. And of course, it was a central piece of what was happening in 1992 around the riots around Rodney King.
Mm-hmm.
Was this the fact that you had Asian business owners
Right.
within Black communities, and here it is. It
Right.
comes from that whole idea of model minority and divestment from Black communities, and
Right.
it
And
exists now as tension between Asians and Blacks.
Even now, we're seeing, you know, through this current global pandemic, that so many of the healthcare workers, you know, come from India, you know, and you know, in other places, but that's a large segment, and you know, there's a lot of intentionality to that, and so if you give all kinds of incentives for certain people to come into the country, you know, and treat them well, then they don't have an automatic reason to identify with the downtrodden, you know, of the indigenous communities there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen a lot of that. And you know, it was kind of interesting to me, in the early days of the pandemic in New York, people's racism toward Asians was like off the charts,
Mm-hmm.
you know, off the charts. And, you know, I just was trying to look at it from like a Chinese person's perspective. To a large degree, they've been coddled and loved and, you know, held up.
Yeah, as the model minority.
Right. And, you know, all of a sudden people are not that they don't have an experience of racism in the United States from back in the day, but, you know, in the most recent decades, it seems like they've been doing okay. And then it seems like all of a sudden, you know, people just turned on them, and it was ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how Cherríe Moraga explains, like, you know, we look in the at the very beginning, kind of, yes, she offers us, I want to say it's poetry. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
In the preface, and she says, you know, we look across oceans for hope. And so, and I'm sorry, you all, I need to look at the question. I'm just speaking out.
Okay.
I'm probably not even in line with the question. But what Michelle said, it makes me think about that, because I believe that this is just straight up, like, her preface is a refusal. She's saying, like, there is no way for us to speak of feminism. It's just, you can't do it anymore if we're talking about these kinds of single kind of group issues, and that there has to be solidarity across and among these groups. And, you know, and of course we understand that, and you know, here, this is a clear, like, call to action, that this is how we're going to move forward. And she uses all the language of what we understand as intersectionality, whether we're going to call it, you know, the Combahee River Collective, if we're going to talk about interlocking oppressions, or we're gonna name it intersectionality, or as she talks about, the simultaneity of oppression. But there is no way that we are going to do this thing if we don't develop this kind of third world consciousness. I think, and I love how she's talking among and into all, among groups, you know, into all groups, like you're saying, Michelle, in particular, the Black American community, when we talk about our Asian and Asian American counterparts, you know, a lot of times there have been, you know, grievances. You know, unfortunately, what's her name in LA? Gosh, what's her name? Oh God, it's right on the tip of my tongue. But remember, she was shot and killed. She's trying to get, what was it, milk or something for her?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, the baby. I can't remember. Oh God, it's right here, and I should never forget that name. I'm always saying her name, but anyway, oh God.
Can
Right
we
there.
pause for a little bit just to welcome Kim, since she's joined us,
Yeah,
and then you can continue, Nicole? Welcome,
yeah.
Kim. Do you want to say who you are, where you're calling, where you're from, and
Some problems with my computer.
we can hear you and see you pretty well right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm having some problems. So, hi everybody.
Hi.
Yeah.
Did you want to introduce yourself to the folks? And then we'll hear again from Nicole.
I am Kim, and I'm here. So, did you want more than that?
We usually say where we're calling from.
I'm calling from New York.
Okay, thank you.
So good to see you, Kim. So good.
Yeah, so we're looking at the first question, Kim, so you know, that's what Nicole is responding to now. And Michelle and I have already responded, so we'd love to hear from you, Nicole.
I'm just happy with this book, so I'm trying to contain my passion. But I just want to close it by saying, yes, I do agree. This does land with me. It strikes me as very reasonable and yet rigorous and transformational. And so, yeah, to the question you asked, and you said, are you strengthened by those connections to the experiences of women of color? And I must be honest, kind of the majority of my experiences with women of color, you know, they have overwhelmingly been with, you know, Black women. And to be specific, Black working class women who are, you know, kind of caught between, well, we have these working class sensibilities. I don't necessarily know if we would be considered still working class, but our sensibilities are very much so working class. But I have, but I'm growing and expanding. And so, yes, I am, you know, I'm more women of color. It's broadening kind of my bandwidth, if you will. More additional women of color groups. I have some comrades that I'm working with, and we do theoretical, we study theory together, and it's been wonderful working with them, and they're wonderful Asian women, Asian American. And so, so yeah, I'm just, I do think her call to kind of this third world consciousness is a path forward. Okay, I'm gonna pass the baton.
Thanks for your contributions, Nicole. Do you have anything that you'd like to share? I'd love to hear your perspective, Kim. Oh, is it frozen? Are you frozen? I think Kim's frozen.
She's frozen. Yeah.
Yep, now she's dropped off. Okay, well, hopefully she'll return.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting because like what I was sharing with Michelle is that from the time I was young, because I grew up in a city that's like one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse city in the world, then my introduction to like this idea of this understanding of feminism has been present with me since childhood. Like I've always been around a group of people, and segregation is not so entrenched where in the place that I grew up in. And so that's one of the things I think that is lost by the system, particularly, you know, if we're looking at like in the United States, is that part of why it makes sense for me that it would be Black women or African Americans is because there is such structural divisions between races, and that actually people have been confused. I was actually in a conversation with two women, one of East Asian descent and one who is is Arab, born in Egypt. So, and how both there's a sense of like, not for both, but in the conversation, confusion and pain around how, for the East Asian woman, she was speaking about like how she didn't grow up with the sense of like being a person of color. And even though she experienced tremendous amounts of racism, but the conversation in the United States, in her experience, is person of color meant Black person. And that even people would tell her, well, you're not a person of color, or I wouldn't say or do this thing if you were a person of color. So not even being seen as that, you know, and the other piece of kind of like pain that the person, that another person, the one who is from Egypt shared, was that like how much pain she has in seeing that Arabs are like fighting to be white on the census or something like that. Like it was just, you know, all the stuff that's coming up, and it's like these are just examples of structural oppression, and they take us away from the gifts that we have to give to each other. Because definitely, I don't know what your experience is now, but when I'm with people of color, I know that I'm with people of color, and I don't, you know, there's all kinds of shortcuts you can take. There's just like a sense of understanding that's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kim, you're back.
Yes, I think I'm back for good. I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you want to give us your perspective on the first question?
No, I'm going to try to get situated on this new computer and then I'll join in a minute. Thank you, though.
All right. Do we have a sense of enough for now, and then we want to take a look at the next question? I see Nicole's gone off camera. I read the first one. Are you willing to read the second one, Michelle, while everyone else is getting settled?
Sure. I don't imagine I will live to see the revolution. I smile at the arrogance of this, that we imagine that our work begins and ends with us. When you consider what is written here, how is it settled in you, the idea that our expressions of feminism are part of the continuum in which we may not live to see the benefits? Does it help to fuel your commitment, or does it lead to mourning?
Thank you, Michelle.
That's a powerful question, Leonie. My goodness. I was like, oh, that was a deep one. That was a deep one. I'm glad you asked Michelle to read it too, because, you know, I was thinking about how I can't help but do this, you all, because I'm a writing teacher first and foremost. And so I've noticed our writing. So it's like the tone of it. I was like, it's so beautiful, first and foremost. But secondly, like I see this kind of, I can't necessarily see distinctions as much anymore in like the way we're writing about these topics when we share. And so anyway, I just connected you and Michelle with that when I was like, that's a Michelle kind of question too. So it was just beautiful, Leonie, and definitely a your kind of question, knowing the work you do. So it's just beautiful seeing this kind of merging. But I in particular love when she says that. It was so powerful for me. You guys, I was just like underscoring, boxing that in my book, because that is the reality and the conditions of, you know, our time as people who are trapped. We are free and yet unfree. Our liberation projects have not, you know, come to completion for us. And so that's this kind of notion of, you know, of the work that we do. But I think I love how Cherríe Moraga here is calling first and foremost for genealogy. She makes me think about my Black woman, soulmate academic, Dr. Carmen Connord, whom I love so much. who she always talks about, you got to know a genealogy, right? You don't just start in the middle of something or at the end. There's a genealogy, and you got to get familiar with that, right? And so, like Cherríe Moraga is saying, like, none of this is new.
Nope.
The desire for revolution is not new. There were so many of our foremothers who wanted this, who worked on behalf of this. And we do ourselves a disservice not knowing their plights, not understanding, the blueprints, not going back and doing the work. And that's why I love that we come together here, because this is a public pedagogy. This is also a way that we're teaching other. We don't have a whole lot, we're not wealthy women, and but this is what we can give, and this is our offering to humanity. We're all collectively here teaching people, and learning ourselves. So it's not, a hierarchy there. So I just love that, and I just think we should, accept that call daily. As she's saying, do I think that I'm going to live to see the revolution? No. But I promise you, having learned more and then having hope for the future generations is helping me make it through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think for me, knowing that we're not likely to see the ultimate in revolution, it brings up a mixed bag of emotions for me, happy and sad. But I think, I always like to do the best that I can to ground myself in reality. And, today is Malcolm X's birthday and Lorraine Hansberry's birthday, and two mid-20th century actors who themselves came in, when and where I entered, came in at a particular point in our long story. And, so I think that the reality is, a part of it is just life. It's just nature. And the more we can accept nature for what it is, the more we can get in line with it, roll with it. And I think when I put on my management hat, I just want to say that I think a lot of times we don't really know how to embrace the complexity of various problems. I think all the things that we're seeing with this global pandemic, particularly in the United States, but even around the world, are just a textbook in so many lessons about what to do and not to do to solve a problem. And so we're actually looking at and living through a situation where we have a president in the United States who absolutely refuses to accept reality, who absolutely is incapable of handling the complexity of the reality of this virus. And that failure, that abysmal failure, is costing lives, and we're still counting, and we don't know when we're even going to see the end, because he's making it so much worse than it has to be by his refusal to accept reality. And so I want to go back and say, I think something like slavery, to me, is an unresolved issue. You know, when you can say to a group of people, get your Black ass back to the meat packing plant, I don't give a damn what risk you have to take, then you are not free. When you have to make a choice between your health, your life, and your livelihood, you're not free. So, you know, I think that as a people, particularly as we have been placed on these shores, we have been dealing with extremely complex scenarios, extremely complex. And we want an answer, like Donald wants an answer. I want this to be over. We're back. But we're not back. We're dying. You know, so you can wish that we're back all you want, but that is a very different thing from actually solving the problem. So I think in a comparative way, when you look at the issues that the Black community has had to deal with, we can read a book that was published first in 1981, because we ain't solved the problem yet. So I think maybe because I you know, my daddy was a preacher. I grew up with a religious background. I think that I have always had a sense of we're here to do some work. We're here for some purpose. We are just a part of the tapestry. And we do ourselves honor, we do our people honor, we do our family honor when we connect, when we're able to identify our truest and highest purpose, and just add to the river what we have to add. So I feel good and I feel joyful when I feel like I'm in alignment with my purpose.
Thank you. Kim, say something.
Well, I look at the word revolution and I think of the word coup, that there have been many coups that have failed. And I think that we are experiencing a failed one, especially in this country. That, you know, we thought that with the Black president that we had started something and that was the fruit of a revolution. And it turned out that what was waiting for us right behind that, you know, you just might as well admit it, that the Republicans and Donald Trump has kicked our ass. That you know, when you look at the greed of the 1% and how they are even greedier than I guess the 10% was in slavery times, that it's a whole new beast. And so I think the word revolution is so misleading, that there's going to be this big fight and we're going to win. Yay, and I'm going to be here when we win. But I don't think so. I think it's more like chess, where they make a move, we make a move. We make a move, they make a move. And at some point, we have to, as a community, start to better predict their moves and have alternatives to because I think we all know how to hit them where it hurts, but we haven't done that. So maybe that's what the revolution is implied, that at some point we will align our gifts and our talents and our resources and, you know, crush them, crush the oppressive system that we're under. But even if we did, the next day they would start to rebuild it. So I look at it as this continuum, and I don't feel that it increases my commitment or it has left me mourning. I think that what has me mourning as when there are these disasters like this virus, and that impacts the same people who are so oppressed and beat down. You know, so I was listening to a speaker talk about how the virus in the Bronx, for example, here in New York, because so many people have asthma and there's only one hospital in a certain radius, that if, and so many people live on top of each other, that if the illness gets mixed in with poverty and oppression, it is just so deadly. So when the mayor here and the governor here are saying, we're going to investigate why blacks and people of color are dying more, it's just like, get the hell out of here with that. So I just feel like it is an eye opener, and we just have to keep taking whatever actions we can take. And I don't feel like I'm mournful. I just feel like the weight of what needs to be done when a national disaster hits oppression, it's a steeper hill to climb, but I don't fear that we can't do it.
Yeah, I just want to say, Kim, talking about when disaster hits a hurting people, you know, they've been exporting people to Haiti. So what I heard on Democracy Now.
What? I didn't. What? People with the virus are being exported to Haiti?
Yeah.
They're moving. They're moving undocumented people. They're sending them back to Haiti, and they're not checking. They don't. It doesn't matter if they have the virus or not. They're sending them back to Haiti.
Yeah.
And these are Haitians that they're sending back to Haiti?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we knew that was the next front, right? Which is why I could never co-sign the idiocy of the ADOS, you know, because like I get the grievance. I understand that there are grievances. I get that there are grievances, but what I don't understand when we talk about these descendants of slavery, and the descendants are those who are still bearing the yoke of colonialism, right? That's so problematic, because we knew once, you know, they were shackling it and putting brown people in cages, Black is next, right? I mean, we saw kind of like that dominant figure of Latinos being captured, and those vulnerable and children, right? But we knew that those immigrants, the African diaspora, you're like, it was going to happen. It's an attempt to whiten America, and we know and understand this to be so. And so, you know, so that's why I just could not get with, like, we have to talk about grievances. M. Jackie Alexander, she talks about, you know, these kinds of rifts, you know, that they're what they call the diaspora wars, but there's a way to talk to our family members, even if we say, you know, the fictive kin, our diasporic kin. But it's just, we knew it was going to happen, and then, and it is absolutely right. Like, there's no way around it. It is absolutely a measure or an assessment or a way to bring about death, and a way to measure and assess, like, how these other nations whose infrastructures are already weak or vulnerable already are going to handle that. We already know the outcome. And so that's why I like the thematics of this book, where Moraga and Bambara and all the writers are saying, you know, we keep looking back to look forward, right? Because we know these outcomes. We know the outcome. Oh, and I wanted to speak her name, the Orange Juice and Latasha Harley. That's who I'm speaking of. Yeah. Hey, I'll read number 3, Leonie, if we're ready.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm getting a little older here, y'all. These eyes are aging, so I gotta take my glasses off to read it. Okay, so number 3. Okay, so the kind of page 27 there. Some of you like us, well, in Roman numerals, some of you like us are up to here with the chorus of lament who give suffering and pain more merit than laughter and health. How would you describe your balance in this sphere? What in your life brings to you laughter? What do you imagine would surface more joy in your life? Do you see it as part of your feminism? Oh, good question. Great question. Well, if nobody, I'll go first. I absolutely love this question and these ideas of, you know, balance. First, I think I love that we've already brought up when Cherríe Moraga describes like all these catastrophes that she lived through, and we've lived through these kinds of major catastrophes within the U.S. on the domestic sphere here. But I like that, or it's ironic, shall I say, or paradoxical that we're reading this 30, almost 39 years since the first edition was published. And we are in the midst of a huge catastrophe, a public health crisis. It's international, it's a pandemic, and we have to look across the ocean. Like you have to, it's connected. So I like that. And so what is balance? What is balance even for me at this point? Yeah, I'm searching for joy. I'm calling joy to me. I'm doing it, you know, through ritual. Um, I'm doing it, you know, utilizing it as a kind of spiritual practice, structural methods like writing. I have absolutely been calling joy to me, and that is a component of my feminism / womanism. I have a vision board here in my office that I'm looking at, and at the top it says, "Oh joy." I'm actively calling joy to me. The problematic here, though, is unfortunately there's not a whole lot that I'm able to imagine anymore that brings me joy. This pandemic has kind of broken down some things, like, you know, not being able to share space with people we love, and then that grief, and you know, and just like the reality of the the fact that once white people weren't at the top of the list, the death counts, it's like, well, let's reopen. So like, it's a direct announcement as to the bodies and people that we care about and value. But this brings me joy, being with you all virtually and reading and discussing these books. But not a whole lot that brings me joy. But I do understand joy is absolutely as an absolute necessity and a part of the Black revolution. Like that has to be a part of it as well. I mean, a revolution. If we're talking Black or women of color, those kinds of progressive revolutions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think,
Well, oh, go ahead, Kim.
thank you, Michelle. I think for me, I need to up my joy game. I'm I'm always trying to figure out what the next thing is to do, what the right thing is to do, how to make connections with people, and I really could up my joy game. And I think that this isolating my life hasn't changed that much at all, because I'm still have all of my meetings and connections and organizing work. But the thing that's missing most was there was a level of joy um, that's even less now. And so I did find it in books and poetry and certain movies. And I discovered since we've been isolating that I never take naps. And I had a nap recently, and you would think I invented this. It was just so nice to sleep in the middle of the day. I just loved it. So I probably have been talking about this nap for like 2 weeks now. So, but I think I actually have to plan for it. But I think joy is necessary in terms of maintaining the self, making sure that you don't fall too far down into despair. And so I love to laugh. I love comedy shows. I like a certain kind of comedy. And if the comedy isn't up to par, I'm out. So I love laughing. I love profanity, believe it or not. Um, I just really love to laugh. And I love my laugh. Like sometimes when I hear it, I remember I was at an event in the East Village in Manhattan, and I got home and somebody called me and they said, "Were you at the show?" And I said, "Yeah, I didn't see you." They said, "No, I didn't see you either, but I heard you." And that's just the way I laugh. So it was just wonderful for somebody to say, "Oh, it's 300 people here, but we heard that. We heard you." So I just think that's important for us to find ways to make each other laugh.
Absolutely.
Here, here. It's for me, there's joy in like this wasn't always true, but like in trying and being with people that are trying to make a difference. And because for me, the reality is that the struggle is active. Like the struggle in terms of being a person with a Black body and a female body is very active. And so if that struggle is active, then I'm willing to put in a little bit of struggle to see what I can do for like some ease or connection. So there's something about the fact that I'm in a place now where so much of my life is dedicated towards trying things out, seeing what can happen, what can you do. I realized too that like, especially around COVID-19, and I had shared this on Facebook the other day, that there's an interview with the Dr. David Williams, who's a sociologist, and he's particularly looking at social determinants of health and the impact of racism and oppression. And the way that he talks about it is that like COVID-19 is like the perfect storm, because it means that we are, because Black bodies are the ones that are doing the work. They have the lowest amount of income, therefore they have hourly jobs, so therefore they have to do the work. Because of the impact of structural racism, they're actually more vulnerable. And so that's why the contraction rate is bad, the death rate is even worse. And that these are all products of what of systemic racism. Like, he made the point that regardless of whatever income stream of a Black person is in America, that they still have worse outcomes health-wise. And that comes from the impact of all those little moments of inequality and of racism, all those little things, they accumulate in our bodies and they're with us. So for me, the question comes up around like, and why it is that where the joy comes in the doing and being with other people who are interested in the doing and making a choice to only be with those people. Like if you're not interested in addressing racism, then like, fuck you, I guess. So it's like,
you gotta put some heat on that word. You can't whisper that. You gotta put heat on there, bitch.
So it's just that like, okay, so knowing that this is true, what can I do? What can we do to like participate in actions that actually help to mediate some of those impacts? Like, which means like, you know, there was a great line in here about how like we've all become consumers. It's like pulling out of like capitalism where you can, because it does not work. It's not meant for you. It's absolutely terrible. And work and stepping towards community, like, and that's for me is where some joy is, because I can actually see the benefit of what it means to step into community, to be there for somebody and to be held by other people. You know, and I could speak during this crisis, but also just in general in my life, that I have more of those experiences. So for me, it's like very much expansive, this idea. And I think, so for me, the invitation is, if the struggle of being is real, which it is, then it's worth it in my mind to struggle with stepping into some place of like finding joy. Yeah. Just FYI, Georgette tried to join us, but there's a storm, so she doesn't have good internet. But she's watching.
Oh, well, I find my joy with all of you, and you know, and I've really missed you over these last few months, and you know, I want to say for the recording and for the record that all of you have been in a private session over the last few months reading My Grandmother's Hands.
Yes.
Who was the author?
Resmaa Menakem.
Resmaa Menakem. Okay. I haven't read it yet, but I do want to. But you know, I was just kind of off in La La Land for a while, which I needed to do. You know, but I definitely miss our weekly connections, and I am thrilled to be back now. I think for me, joy has always been more about people than anything else, and I think it's related to having a lot of sadness in my childhood, but I also had a lot of material things. But what it taught me was that material things don't necessarily equal happiness or joy. And so, you know, again, about what is, you know, what is your reason for living? What is the purpose of life? And for me, it really is about the people and the relationships and the quality of those relationships that either brings me joy or does not. I think even with feminism, or with my approach to feminism, it has something to do with wanting to improve the quality of relationships in my life. I remember I had a boyfriend, a long-term man in my life. And I remember he said to me one time, you know, because, you know, I'm one that always wants to talk about it, you know, in great detail. And he was like, you know, I don't really want to talk about it. You know, people just, you know, they just kind of fall into patterns, and you know, when you talk about it, it messes it up. And you know, and that was his belief, and you know, and he may be right. But I'd rather mess it up. I'd rather tear the house down. I'd rather break up. I'd rather destroy this motherfucker than to be in a relationship of any kind where I'm really not happy. And to me, the words are the bridge. If I can walk through these words and get you to understand what my needs are, who I am, what I'm feeling, and you can respect that and honor that and respond to that, then we can create something that for me is real and joyful and lasting and all of that. But those same relationships that can bring so much joy, you know, can also bring so much pain when we fail to make those connections. So that's one take on joy.
Right, right.
And I'm very good one at that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Georgette says, looking good, ladies.
Hi, Georgette. Miss you.
Yeah. Well, we have just about 25 minutes left. Is there more on this question? We want to look at the last one?
I'd like to talk about joy some more.
Yeah.
I also get joy from painting and singing and the arts. But one thing I love, where I get a lot of joy from is there's something about being with people of color. And regardless of whether you succeeded or you failed, just the way we talk to each other about what happened and how it happened, it's just like this joy. Because I know a lot of my friends, they'll come back and they say, you know, Kim, I can't believe you said that, and then they'll imitate something that I said, and then we just roll around laughing, and I don't take it, you know, personally. I just know that it was something that I said. And they said, but where do you come off with the getting, you know, saying this stuff? And my mother was like that. She would say, like, win, lose, or draw. She would say, and then what happened? Tell me what I said. And we would just repeat. And then you said to the landlord, you did like this, Mama. You said such and such and such. And we would just, I just love us. I think there's a part of our culture that is so warm and so loving and so funny that, and I think that was the wonderful thing about Langston Hughes when he wrote about Simple. You know, it was just something about us, even in the hardship. There's this joy, there's this exuberance that sometimes I forget to notice it when it's happening. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to take more time. And I also get joy from the work. Like Leonie was saying, that sometimes, like we did something this past Sunday, and we were on Zoom and it was like just 30 of us, but I just had to keep looking in their eyes and say, these are the type of people that I like working with, that they're giving up of their time. So I just think there's so many ways that we experience joy, but forget to check the box that, you know, I had some joy today. And I forget a lot because I'm so busy thriving in one way that I forget to live, you know, and just to stop and say, you know, that was kind of funny. Maybe that should, so yeah, I'll stop there.
Kim, I feel like that's one of the things missing in Donald's life. Like, he strikes me as an extremely unhappy person. And, you know, I mean, we know he's a narcissist and a sociopath and all of that. And,
you know, I was trying to figure out who Donald was.
I mean, you know, I guess.
You know Donald, like you know Barack. Like, come on, Kim.
I guess he can't, you know, he can't help it. But it's clear as you watch him through this crisis that he doesn't understand what it means to us to be losing our family and friends. He doesn't understand. And it feels like he's never had that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Michelle, it's just my thoughts, and I really think that there are people who are so excited about us dying of this disease that they dance around their apartments naked. They just so happy. And I think
this is their joy.
I think he's one of them. I really do. I just think that we are expendable. And I think that's why I like the question on the revolution, because it says that, you know, we think that we can help each other change this country, but there are some people who are locked into this country so strong and are so happy about Donald being in office. And when you said Donald, I thought it was like a personal friend of yours. I didn't know.
Oh, he's no friend of mine.
My brain was trying to figure out, well, do I know a Donald? What Donald she talking about? Is this somebody intimate? What Donald?
I think you're right, Kim, but I think you're both right. I think you're right that there are people who are celebrating this, and I still think that it comes from their own pain that they don't have awareness of and don't know how to process. Like the fact that you can celebrate that, and it's actually not an opinion that isn't backed up, because one of the things that this Dr. Williams talked about is the fact that, like, study after study shows that, like, white people don't care what happens to Black people. Like, they literally don't care. And I think that don't care is the outcome of not being attached to their own history and not being attached to understanding that it ends up showing up and looking like a complete lack of humanity. Talked about how 70% of the people who are wanting everything to open up, this is in the United States, they're white, they're middle class, they're salaried. They have not suffered. They have not suffered in any material way for this pandemic. The people who don't want things to open up are all working class, the ones that are on the front line, wage workers, that are concerned because they're turning and looking to their left and looking to the right and seeing, oh, my auntie has COVID and is in the hospital, or my uncle actually died of it, or whatever. Like, they're literally dealing with death every single day. Right.
Yeah. And I think too, Leonie, I think we would absolutely have to throw in those ways in which institutions support that, right? So the institutions support this kind of historical, this erasure, if you will, and it's a way to maintain this mythological white innocence. And so when you enter those institutions and you speak those truths, your Black ass won't be there long. because nobody, there's a way to start, to get you out, to do the work of
and your white ass, Nicole, your white
That's
ass.
true. And your white ass sometimes. Yeah.
From the perspective of solidarity, look at Dr.
Right.
Rick Wright.
You're conscious. That's true. If that kind of consciousness as well. So yeah, and other people of color asses, right, won't be there long. But it's so let's reframe. So if you have a critical consciousness that you're speaking to and you make known and visible, right, that you're removed because that goes against those ways in which they're constructing their own kind of institutional lore, as well as, again, these histories that people don't want to deal with. And so you're gone just like that, because what's grieving me is when I think about Sylvia Wynter and the ways in which, and so many Black academics here, and and I'm speaking of the diaspora as well with Winter, but with Black studies programs, and we talk about what's happening at these institutions, and that the Black studies programs are overwhelmingly like the first ones that you begin to gut and cut. Wow, there's just that just tells us, where we are. We are still in the midst of these incomplete freedom projects.
Oh, yeah.
The struggle for liberation is ongoing, and folks better decide which side they're on. And I don't know if it's age, but I'm with you, Leonie.
Yeah.
I don't have to be in the company of wolves any longer. I mean, what I'm saying is, I'm making my politics well known, and that I don't have time, because to me, this is a very serious matter.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The thing that I think is which is why I appreciate that we're looking at this book now, because we don't have to this has been true in why it is that like I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and like why I've created the organizations that I've created, and why I'm creating POC spaces, is because this book speaks to exactly what the remedy is. We don't have to give our time, energy, and attention to what's happening with white folks. We should be moving towards each other as people of color to give our time, energy, and attention to seeing what we can generate for ourselves. Because we can't sit around and wait for racism to go away. Right? So, but we're not helpless. Even though we're oppressed and our lives are at stake, we're not helpless, and we can be stronger if we work together as people of color, right? So it's up to us, which is why I love that we read My Grandmother's Hands book, because it's like, it helps me to like really commit to stepping towards other people of color, and to be like, this is, you can be my sister. We can work out. I am interested in your liberation as well as my own. I'm not going to enter into a conversation about, Asian folks, now they know what racism is, and now they're getting all this attention, and no attention has come to Black folk. I'm not doing that. That is such a white lens. I will not do it. Right? So shall we squeeze in that last question?
Yeah,
let's go for it.
All right.
Yeah.
Who would like to read?
I don't mind.
Not seeing anyone else. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So the page 30, the Roman numerals. And coming to terms with the incorporation of disease, struggling to overthrow the internal colonial and pro-racist loyalties, color, hue, hair, caste, with the household power, perversities engaged in under the guise of personal relationships accommodation to, and collaboration with self-ambush and amnesia and murder, and coming to grips with those false awakenings too that give us ease as we substitute the militant mouth for radical politics, delaying over true coming of age as committed, competent, principled combatants. A, interested in what you make of this quote. I think what she is speaking here is a work of coming to clarity of politics that I acknowledge, that acknowledges the distractions and lessons. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys, my paper cut off here. Hold on. Let me read it again.
It's okay, we can help you out.
Interested in what you make of this quote, I think what she is speaking to here is the work of coming to a clarity of politics that acknowledges the distractions and lenses, keeping our personal vision of politics muddled. And B, how's the reading of the book have been part of our collective journey as a circle supported a clarity to your politics as it relates to feminism, racism, and oppression? Wow. Great question. You did that, Leonie, like the youngsters say, you marked that.
I like marked up so many things in this book because like I wish that I had it, known of it, and read it when I was younger, because I've been complaining my whole life about white feminism.
Not the first.
I'm just like, if I hear one more thing from these Gloria Steinem loving, blah, blah, blah. So I just like marked up this thing. Honestly, I was just like, I'm only doing 4 questions because.
Yeah.
Anyone want to kick off this particular discussion?
I'll be honest. I love this. I love how Bambara brings this to us, and I keep thinking about the lesson, her short story, and wow, Bambara is just fire. But I'll be honest, you all. I mean, here's just a slight aside. I got caught up in the semantics here because I'm trying to differentiate or understand how Bambara differentiates the radical from the militant, right? So because, and I think I've been like sitting with that question and sleeping on it, anticipating, you all kind of shedding light, because for me, I guess the radical is the militant, or I don't know how to really take those two or unsettle those. My definitions are perhaps off, but I don't know the degrees of, how she says, substituting one for the other that gives us ease as we substitute the militant mouth for radical politics. I guess I need to go back anyway. And think.
How I read that, Nicole?
Yeah, how are you reading?
I read the militant mouth as it's easy to talk shit. It's easy to scream out in pain, to demand action now. Like what's going through my head now is Black Lives Matter. We got to do something right now.
Right.
And again, as I was talking earlier about not appreciating the complexity of a situation and therefore making mistakes, skipping steps, and ultimately not getting the job done. And the work of a radical politic, in my mind, is the work that gets the job done.
That makes sense. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, that question, the difference kind of lies in kind of what came in this idea that the militant would be to hold on to a perspective that is a Black perspective, and not move toward. The
Okay.
radical is in forming connections with other people and other women, because that's not is what is expected. The militant is expected. This idea of it's very individualized, you know, it's not towards the collective, or it's only the
Anger, it's
collective.
lashing out in anger.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
and the
Wow.
radical vision is one around togetherness, right?
A solidarity. Okay.
Yeah.
I think my framework, though, I was thinking of the Panthers.
Mm.
And I'm like, but there was absolutely an engagement. It was an internationalist engagement, the Panthers, but I don't know anyone who wouldn't call them militant. So I see what you're saying, but I think so. But my trajectory is limited, because if I'm only looking at the Panthers, if I look at kind of other militant moves, so yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be like the fact that the civil rights movement had was largely nonviolent would be a radical position as opposed to a militant one.
Right, absolutely. Still radical, yeah.
I think a lifetime commitment to the struggle is a radical pick.
That's a positionality.
You know, I think it was Kim, you know, that was saying something earlier about, you know, we've seen these games before. It's like they keep running the same playbook.
Yeah.
And, you know, we know they're going to do everything possible to crush us, to break our connections, to kill us.
Right.
You know, that's the playbook.
Right.
So given that, you know, or, you know, as you all have heard me talk so many times about the 500-year plan, how do you stay committed to a vision in the face of all of that?
That makes sense. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And even when I'm thinking through like what's radical about queer women of color and trans women, their visibility, that is always already engaged in a radical politics. So that does make sense. Okay, that has helped me a lot, because I'll be honest, you all, and I do think is my framework, because I kept thinking, well, the militant and the radical, but okay, that helps.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
I think for me, I need to look at this more as an umbrella with many spokes. That there are going to be issues that are Black and African American, and I need to be radical and militant in that space.
Yeah.
Then there are going to be opportunities where I need to move out of my own camp and move into the kitchen of somebody Filipino or Latino or a Latin person or whatever. But I cannot undermine, or I cannot think that because police officers are killing Black men and women, shooting them down dead, that the Black issue is identical to every other issue.
Right.
It is not. It is not. But that does not mean that I should fight the Black issue by myself. But if there is a day when I have to fight by myself, I am going to do that. So that for me, I am both radical and militant. And so,
come on, Kim.
I like the idea of people of color, third world people, having an umbrella where we all have a spoke in it. And this way, when the rains come and the storms come, we are all protected, because there's no rip, there's no terror. But there's going to be times where there's an issue that when you look at the prison system, that y'all gonna have to have my back too. So all I'm saying is I think that this is a wonderful concept, and that we all look at how we got to be white and Black to begin with, and you can kind of see that it's ludicrous.
Yeah.
And to unpack that. But as we're unpacking that, if it's my son that's being shot at, then I need y'all to come down and be with me when I am protesting the fact that they're killing Black bodies at a rate that they're not killing other bodies,
Right.
other bodies of color. So there are a couple of nuances and differences, but ultimately my goal would be is we as we continue to work together, the differences may be in the eye of the oppressor, but not in the eye of our own agency.
Yeah, that makes sense, Kim.
And
Kim,
just
just come through, Kim. That was just like,
yeah.
bada bing, bada bing. Come on, Kim. Come on.
I'm just going to read what Gio said.
Okay.
Gio said, great exploration of those terms in this context. The visual. So it's resonating with her.
All right, all right.
So I wanted to, I have an idea of how we can close, and it's an invitation, so you could say no to it, but I hope that you consider it, which is that I was wondering if we can take turns in reading the poem.
Come on.
Poem that is there. And I thought we could just literally take turns reading each paragraph, just so that we can bring our voices in.
There's several poems. Which one specifically?
The bridge poem
The
from
bridge poem.
Which poem? Okay.
XIII.
Yeah, so it's 33. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. Before we close, could I just say, so
Yeah.
Nicole, I think you are signed up to facilitate next week.
Yes, yes.
And I'm going to do the week after. And then I think Georgette is going to do June 9th.
Okay.
And so Kim, if you want to take June 16th, that's open. Otherwise, we could wait until next week when hopefully Georgette will be here and, and push the schedule a little bit more then.
June 16th is fine for me.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's happy birthday to you, right, Leonie?
Tomorrow, but yeah.
Tomorrow. All right.
Oh, happy birthday.
Your early birthday, Leonie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like that way of closing, Leonie. I love it. So.
Okay. Do you want to start off with the first paragraph, Michelle? And then we'll just, I'm just going to go in the order that I see. So it will be Michelle, myself, Nicole, and Kim. And we'll just keep going in that round.
Okay.
Until we're done.
This is the bridge poem by Kate Rushin. I've had enough. I'm sick of seeing and touching both sides of things. Sick of being the damn bridge for everybody.
Nobody can talk to anybody without me, right?
I explained my mother to my father to my little sister to my brother, to the white feminists to the Black church folks, the Black church folks to the ex-hippies to the Black separatists, the Black separatists to the artists to my friends' parents.
Then I've got to explain myself to everybody. I do more translating than the goddamn UN.
Forget it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of filling in your gaps.
Sick of being your insurance against the isolation of your self-imposed limitations. Sick of being the crazy at your holiday dinners. Sick of being the odd one at your Sunday brunches. Sick of being the sole Black friend to 34 individual white people.
Find another connection to the rest of the world. Find something else to make you legitimate. Find some other way to be political and hip. I will not be the bridge to your womanhood, your manhood, your humanness.
I'm sick of reminding you not to close off too tight for too long. I'm sick of mediating with your worst self on behalf of your better selves.
I am sick of having to remind you to breathe before you suffocate your own full self.
Forget it. Stretch or drown, evolve or die.
The bridge I must be is the bridge to my own power. I must translate my own fears, mediate my own weaknesses.
I must be the bridge to nowhere but my true self, and then I will be useful.
Beautiful. Woo!
Wow.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Thank you, everybody. Excellent. So I want to thank the people who joined us for the live casting of this. There'll be a video that's posted. I know there were some problems with the live cast, so we'll post a video up shortly. And thank you. Join us next week when Nicole will be moderating, and we'll be taking a look at some of the future chapters of the book. And bye-bye for now.
Bye. Thank you, Leonie.
Yes.